Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Justin Grimes. Thanks for being on the show, Justin.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Whitney. Appreciate you having me on.
Justin is in real estate and business investing. It was a hobby, but now it's a necessity, and I appreciate that. I've heard that story a couple times in his story, and I'm ready for him to tell us a little more about how he got into this and how it became a necessity. And he's also the host of the Cash Flow Hustle, which I highly recommend you checking that out. Justin, would you give us a little more about your background, how you got into real estate?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. The kind of, I guess, ultimate catalyst that got me and my family started in this occurred in May of 2016 when we lost my father in an auto accident. And, so a lot of things changed in our life at that point. And one of those was what we were going to do for my mom, who's a retired school teacher, to supplement income. Through that time, we took probably, 9 months or so and didn't do anything. But in, kind of the background, I was researching different things to, ultimately create and grow wealth through reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then kind of going down that rabbit hole and all these other things that get your mind thinking about different ways than just a W-2 job. So what we ended up doing was putting that money in some money in the stock market. That was all I knew, stocks and bonds. I knew somebody in that space. And for the time being, that was a great place to be. Things have been on the up and up for quite a while. When we record this, it's a little bit of a fluctuating time, but that's what that space does. Yeah. So it has cycles and valleys and peaks and all that stuff. So what we weren't interested in doing was, I guess, waking up every morning and having just massive swings in what she had in her retirement account, which, she's drawing down on a monthly or quarterly basis. We were looking for something stable that could provide distributions that she could kind of budget and plan on. So anyway, down that we went to try to find different real estate opportunities. And what I came across was multifamily apartment investing, and really enjoyed, there's a ton of stuff. It's, I don't know what it was like before 2016 when I started getting involved in the space, but there's just a ton of great content out there. And so I was able to, kind of self-educate myself for a bit, and then began slowly, as I became comfortable enough, networking and meeting some of these people who do this, for a living. And so that's kind of how the journey got started.
Awesome. So pretty much, like you said, it was a hobby, but it became a necessity. You wanted to find a way for your mother to have some passive income, to invest better than what you found in the stock market. You first turned to the stock market. Why not just ride the stock market out like I hear so many people talk about?
So what we kind of did. So I've got a younger brother and then my mom, and we sit down and what are our goals, and kind of where does it rank on our, priorities as far as growth versus stability. So what we decided was, we've got some decent diversification. So in the real estate syndication space, particularly, we're involved in mobile home park, multifamily, and self-storage. And then even within each of those segments, we've got different partners that are in different geographic regions around the U.S. So when we started out, we had all of our stuff in one particular city, and what we decided, just like with the stock market, we just didn't want all of our eggs in one basket. So we do still have some stuff in stocks and bonds that are, just kind of there. And they do bring value for us in the tool that they're in, as far as providing some levels of liquidity and things like that to borrow against, and things that we want to do as we kind of go through. We're kind of learning. We're new to all this stuff. So I try and read and listen to as much as I can, and then execute, and just don't make a real big mistake. Mistakes will be made, but try to keep those to a minimum.
Sure. Phoenix Syndication Workshop 2019 is a premier educational and networking event hosted by noted real estate investors Ben Leibovich and Sam Grooms. PSW is a 2-day event being held in Phoenix, Arizona on January 26th and 27th. The first day is dedicated exclusively to nuts and bolts underwriting training. Ben and Sam will give a detailed presentation of their approach, technique, and underwriting model, which allows them to pick out the best deals in this very competitive environment. A recent case study will be utilized as a basis for this training. On day 2, the attendees will learn from industry professionals. Ben and Sam will be joined by a mortgage broker, property manager, and an attorney to answer your questions. As a bonus, everyone will visit the property to experience the process in action. This type of in-depth and actionable access is truly rare and invaluable. Ben and Sam are passionate about giving back, so 20% of the gross revenue from this event will be donated to a nonprofit. Register for the Phoenix Syndication Workshop by visiting justaskbenwhy.com/Phoenix. So why don't you talk to maybe the passive investor that's listening now that says, okay, I'm realizing, or I'm learning that I've got all my eggs in one basket, maybe as just in the stock market. And I feel like I need to diversify like you have, Justin. What are some ways that you self-educated, like you said, to make sure you were making a good move into real estate?
Yeah, podcasts were one of the best ways. So I still have a W-2 job, and my job is it's a commute about 20 to 25 minutes, and which is pretty tame in Houston. So anyway, within that time, I'm able to kind of have some windshield time. Yeah. And with 2 little kids, that's awesome. So I'm very fortunate to have that quiet time. And what I decided to use that on is podcasts or audiobooks and things like that. So, my recommendation is to, there's plenty of content out there. I think through your search, you'll be able to see who has, built solid communities and followings and things like that with some real substance, not just people who are necessarily, writing a book and talking about it. Rather, they're executing on the things that they're talking about, whether that's a podcast or a book or whatever. So that's one of the main things, I guess, as far as getting started out.
So you started educating yourself. You learned you wanted to go into real estate. What was really the next steps you took, as far as figuring out how to invest into real estate? What did you do to actually, where did the rubber meet the road?
Yeah. After kind of that educational, time period that we had, I started reaching out to these operators or, people who are putting these syndications together and trying to learn a little bit about them, build relationships. We've got this amount of money. You're interested in putting these deals together. How does it work? And they're, everyone that I've reached out to, I guess we hadn't invested with all of them, but, I'm common. It's typical that through that kind of vetting process that I've gone through, which is, just through networking, who have you used in these situations? What's the reputation? What's their performance? Things like that. We've been able to build a solid team. So, yep.
So what are maybe some things we should be looking for when you're you're vetting those syndicators or those operators? What are some things you looked for that maybe we should consider when we're talking to them and asking questions and following up with other people who have used them?
A couple things I think that really stick out for us. Number one is alignment of interest. So is the syndicator themselves invested in this opportunity? Do they have some skin in the game? Or are they strictly, playing in this arena with our money? And if they lose it, we're sorry about that. But there's no, fear of losing their own money in it. So all the people that we participate with have that, as well as, when I talk to these people, guys and gals, I like to hear about capital preservation and the importance of, them understanding that this amount of money, whether it's, the minimum that they're accepting at this point or, the maximum, for us, it means something to our family, to my mom's future and things like that. So it's very personal. So I like to talk about, capital preservation and what their plans are for executing a business plan that isn't built on assumptions that are unrealistic and things like that.
So you said you interviewed, maybe numerous operators, and you hadn't invested with all of them yet, but there was a few that you had. What really stood out about the ones that you have invested with compared, as opposed to the ones that you didn't invest with?
Yeah, I'm interested in getting started out in some of this space as well. And I think ultimately for me, it came down to, performance and track record, not necessarily that they needed to do, 20 deals or 20 years worth of experience, but who on their team do they have access to that has executed these types of deals on the general partner side of things. I'd say was one of the biggest, determining factors for who, I'm interested in growing and helping the new people get into new things and stuff like that, but I don't want to be the guinea pig either. So,
and speaking to that a little bit, getting into new things, and I've heard your story about, how I think your first flip, I think you lost quite a bit of money on the first one, but it was a great learning experience. Right. And so, maybe you could talk about that story a little bit and then just really tell, even the listeners who are getting into this business, syndication business, maybe some things that align with what you learned.
Yeah, sure. The first thing, so I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and got going, and we talked a little bit about why syndications in particular. And for my mom, in her situation, she's able to invest as an accredited investor. So in my situation, I'm not. So I needed to look at some other avenues to generate some additional streams of income was my goal. So my wife and I took a swing on a deal that, we were new to it. We thought we'd built out, some team members and, some people that we could count on, I guess, ultimately. And, at the end of the day, we didn't do enough due diligence and we made some mistakes, for example, and some of these were preventable and some of them were simply just once in a lifetime events, perhaps. I don't know. Anyway, we went over on budget. We had issues with contractors executing work on schedule. And, I was traveling at the time for my W-2 job and trying to get the work inspected. And there were things that would be missed while I was gone. And so one of the bigger things that comes into play perhaps for syndicators as well as just in general real estate were surveys that I didn't get done on about a little over an acre of land. And when it came time for me to sell the property, the title company, the new one, found some mistakes. So ultimately I had to sell less than what I had bought. And I don't know a whole lot about title companies and insurance and things like that, but the particular one I used wasn't very, at least to purchase, was not very interested in making that situation right. So I got left holding the bag on that. So, I feel like we could talk quite a bit. I had termites on that thing by the time we tried to sell it, just all kinds of crazy stuff. So when you get into the space, whether you're new or whatever, now what we do with a business partner, we've got some buying criteria that we'll go in with, get some basic inspections done, have a clean survey that's up to date, so ultimately mistakes will be made like we talked about. It's whether or not you learn from those and prevent those from happening again, ultimately that kind of defines whether or not you're going to be successful in this space or others. syndications, that is, apartments, self-storage, any of that.
So, Justin, what would you say is the one thing that's contributed to your success up to this point?
I think being able to take inventory of all the things that I've learned and, do the research. Who do I think could be a good team member for us? And then trying to build that relationship, all the people that we have invested with. I feel like we've got some level of friendship, or, there's certainly a business aspect to it, but there's some personal relationship there that I think has been important. Helps me, I guess, sleep at night, as well as have confidence that, what I'm putting my family's money into is something that, that we can all have some level of comfort with.
What's some way recently that you've improved your business, your real estate business, that we can all apply to our business?
Yeah, I was looking with a buddy today. We are using kind of a project management platform called Trello, which is free, at least the version that we have. And one of the things I did wrong on my first flip was have very clear milestones and objectives in place that, you call them a draw or a milestone or whatever. But until that's achieved, there's no additional draw. So you may be half done with draw 1 and draw 2, but until draw 1 is done, we can't go to draw 2. So that's the way we set up the schedule. So just sticking to that, it helps me when I'm, traveling or anything else, to stay abreast of that situation. And then once the full draw schedule or checklist on the first scope of work is done, then I can go take a visit, walk through, inspect it, and all that good stuff without, trying to run over there every day and see who's doing what and all that. So that's our approach there. That's something we're doing at this point.
So before we have to go, what are some other things, or if there is ways that you could help somebody that's just getting into this business, maybe a couple of key things that they need to do before they pull the trigger on that? Would you lead them to doing flips, or would you lead them to maybe doing more of a syndication business or apartments, or what's your take on that now that you're experienced in flipping and investing passively?
Yeah, I think it just depends so much on your unique scenario. So if you have access to capital and do qualify as an accredited investor, then I think the benefits with the passivity of it, as well as the taxes, and there's just some really amazing things that come with multifamily in particular, just commercial syndication space. So if you have access to that to invest passively, I would go that route. Certainly what I'm doing with the mortgage note creation business and kind of the flip model is more of a job. It's not passive. I don't have a team built out in place yet. That's the goal ultimately, but it's definitely not passive at all. So I think you got to understand what you want to focus on, where you want to spend your time, and understand really how you plan on executing that based on what your goals are. I guess define what your goals are and then reverse engineer it from there so that you can define what your path needs to be. And there's no doubt about it. It's the path that you line out will inevitably change. So you have to be willing to pivot and go with the flow.
That's good advice there. You definitely have to be willing to pivot and improve and change your plans.
Yep.
So Justin, tell the listener how they can learn more about you and your podcast and your business.
Yeah, sure. The website is thecashflowhustle.com, and the email address is jgrimes@thecashflowhustle.com. The podcast, The Cash Flow Hustle. Anybody who wants to reach out on the website or email or anything like that and talk about maybe what they're looking to do in the syndication space, or passively or actively, what I'd be looking for as an investor and things, happy to hop on a call and talk shop a little bit.
Great. Thank you so much, Justin, for your time and being on the show. I appreciate the listeners being on the show today, and I hope you'll go to the Facebook group so you can interact with guests like Justin, and we can all learn this business together and improve our business. And we will speak to all of you tomorrow.
Great. Thanks.
I want to tell you about an upcoming real estate investing conference hosted by my good friend, Joe Fairless. Every February, Joe brings his best ever conference to Denver, which brings together the top high-level experienced real estate speakers and sponsors that has proven to be the best ever networking, content, and strategies to help grow your portfolio. The earlier you buy, the more you save. Ticket prices increase weekly, so you want to buy today. I attended in 2018, and I can guarantee you do not want to miss this conference. February 22nd and 23rd, 2019 in Denver. Go to besteverconference.com to reserve your seat today. That's besteverconference.com and use hashtag Whitney to save 10%. That's hashtag Whitney.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.